Hello, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of What the Fuck Are We Going to Talk About this week? On the Dana Lee Project.
I love it.
So, this week we're going to talk a bit about, well, I think we're going to touch on the topic of bullying, but also in reference to that, and I'm going to let Mandy kind of frame a scenario and then we'll kind of talk about it from there. But the bigger topic is when is it time? Because I can relate to this of something that I've loved and loved and loved and loved until it's time for me to walk away. But is it time for me to walk away? When is it time to move on? Um, and for what reason?
hmm
I guess the overall topic is when to let things go. Um, do you push through and try to make things work, or do you move on? Right? I
Yeah.
guess is that pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, this is the it's actually come at me from a couple of different scenarios where not me personally, but people who I know are kind of in relationships with different people for different ways, like work or school or whatever. And there's, well, let me just start with Emma, my niece. She has always been into dance, and now she's like gonna be a junior next year. I think. She's 16. But she's been a dancer. She's been on dance clubs, dance groups, or whatever. And she's now like on the higher level of dancing. And these girls are, some of the girls in the dance team are pretty nasty. And for like probably 6 months now, she's been working her ass off, doing all the dances, doing really well, getting awards and everything, but not enjoying it at all because the people that she dances with are pretty vicious. Um, girls are girls, man. It's never changed. It's always been the same. It's just like from a different way. Like, in the 90s they had the, Mean Girls movie and they had the burn book and like the whole bullying or whatever. Now it's like even bigger where you can like put things on the internet and you can share everything with everyone through text messages or Facebook or whatever it is that the kids are, all on. So that had occurred, the bullying or whatever. And then, so after like months and months of going back and forth about like dedicated to this, I'm dedicated to this, I'm dedicated to this, but it's like it's sucking the life out of her. Finally, she decided she was done. I'm like, I'm done. And Maria was like, my sister was like, yeah, you're done. This is just not fun anymore, you know? And and then there's also the other aspect too, like um, someone I know is in a job that they really just are miserable in, thought they'd love it, got the promotion, and only worked in that position for a couple of months before realizing that it's terrible. They can't take it and they're looking for another job. And I would like to I'd say that like it's when it comes to these kinds of things, it's like where are my boundaries, or where do I keep trying to like fix the problem because I really want to fix the problem. I want to get along with people. But I think this is like universal. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can be an adult in a good job and you have terrible people you're working with who will suck the life out of you, no matter how much you love the job. And then there's kids who are on dance clubs or whatever it is that they're doing that, that difficult decision of do I stick around because I love it or do I leave because this is a shitty situation? So I thought, man, this is kind of coming at me from adults and kids, so why not talk about it?
Yeah, and it will continue because the thing that I'll look at is now as a teenager, you're not going to know, you haven't lived enough life to understand a pattern that's going to be possibly set up for you. So
Hmm.
I certainly have worked with several clients where, yes, I help women heal their relationship with food, but a lot of times the result of our work together happens to be cleaning up their work environment where they have a move from a toxic work environment into a less toxic and a more healing and fun, and you get into that groove because there is deeper patterns at play. And
Mhm.
until you recognize what those patterns are, what I've said to myself the last couple of years is if something comes up that's really, there's a resistance or some sort of like, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is very difficult for me to handle. I'm like, help me get the lesson. Yes, this is difficult to handle, but Dana, put your big girl panties on and understand why this is happening and what is my personal responsibility of like, where am I putting my energy into that actually creates more of the dynamic, that continues the dynamic? Or what is it I'm getting out of it? You may think at first, um, like, okay, this is such a struggle and people are treating me like shit here. However, the flip side of that is what part of me is allowing it? What part of
Mhm.
me is kind of somewhat thriving on being a victim? And I know that's like a tough pill to swallow. And some of you might just want to like reach through the video and punch me in the face for saying that. But there is some truth to it. If you're like, okay, you could be pissed at me for now for hearing it at first,
Yeah.
let it sit and digest. And if the more honest you are with yourself in that scenario, the more you'll be able to see really what's going on, what your part and what you're actually getting out of it, and an ability to choose different in another situation or even like in that current work environment. It's like there's that common, that thing with bullies, like they're
Mhm.
going to bully until you fucking punch them,
Yeah.
until you're like, you really stand up to them. And listen, I'm not like condoning violence by any
No.
means,
Right,
but
right.
you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Like, I've given this example in the past. It's the only I was fortunate to never be bullied. I was never bullied. But I'm going to give a scenario of, well, no, there is something that did happen when I was younger. But so I had a good friend in high school, and I've shared this story before, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but it's worth telling again and again because it's just such a great example of this. I have small boobs. My friend from high school has small boobs.
Uh-huh.
Her insecurity is her boobs are small. People picked on her. We hung out all the time. They didn't pick on me.
Mm.
I wasn't any fun to pick on because it didn't bother me. It was fun to pick on her because she was so insecure about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is it we wore the same exact cup size, hung out together all the time, yet she was the one who was the brunt of that kind of attention?
Mm-hmm.
Was there from that age, it was fascinated me. Even when I
Yeah.
was in it, I was like, that's so interesting. What is it that I have that she doesn't have? That why don't they bother me? Why don't they pick on me?
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. They could pick on me and I laugh about it and I laugh with them because it doesn't hurt my feelings. And I was very secure with that. And to this day, I'm like, I see it to my advantage. I could do jumping jacks. I could wear halter tops. I'm like, I'm totally fine with my girls.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted a boob job. She's always wanted a boob job. Now, did
Oh.
she ever get one? I don't think she did. I think she finally found peace with it, but we lost touch. Not
No.
for any other reason, but our lives just went in different directions.
Wouldn't it be funny if she watched this video and was like, I think she's
Yeah.
talking about me.
I know. Well, here's the other thing. She had an older sister who's gorgeous, got a lot of attention, and her sister had a beautiful rack.
And
So,
some probably beautiful back pain as
yeah,
well,
well,
which
right,
is like
maybe.
always the thing.
Maybe, yeah. But I think that also played into her own insecurity. I'm not like my sister kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I was the older sister. I had a younger sister, so it didn't really like affect me like that. So that was one thing that I really learned of like, and this is certainly something we dive into really deep in the mentorship. What are our insecurities? Where do they come from? Do I have to buy into them? Can I dispute them in some way? Can I understand and resolve and heal and turn it around to legitimately believe a different story about yourself and your self-worth? Um, so when you're a teenager, you don't do that work. But over a period of time, because you're not really exposed to it, you haven't lived enough life. Over a period of time, maybe into your 20s, into your 30s, then perhaps you can start to see a pattern develop.
Hmm.
Okay, so I have this bullying going on in the dance situation. And then let's say, all right, I'm going to leave the dance situation and I'm going to go off and do something completely different. But it hasn't resolved sticking up for yourself.
Hmm.
It's going to follow you everywhere in some
Right.
capacity. That's my belief.
Right. Hmm.
And until you address it and actually resolve that insecurity within you, and then that other person, it's just not as fun. It's like, oh, I'm going to leave her alone, or it sort of like goes away, or that person suddenly leaves the job, or something kind of happens where they're removed from your life because you legitimately handle yourself differently. Your energy is different, your attitude is different, how you speak about yourself and to others is different.
Hmm.
And that is how like it can repel those bullies then. They're like, okay, I'm not interested, and it becomes a non-issue.
Hmm. I don't know how you were raised, but I was kind of, and Emma was definitely not raised the way that I was raised, but I was always told to get in there and fight.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's just the generation that we were raised in. And act crazy. That's what my grandma would always say. She's like, "You act crazy." Like my grandmother, everyone was so afraid of her. She had the best face, like that. And everybody always joked because there was this big bully that would come around when they were kids, and she always tells this story. And she walked up to her, and she was like, my grandmother was probably 110 pounds soaking wet. And this girl, to this day, she had pictures of them because they grew up together and they were like best friends. She went up to her and said, "You want to punch me? Punch me right in the face." And she's like, "You crazy little Irish girl," like she's like, and she laughed in her face and she's like, "I love you. You're spunky." And they became best friends. And she like got at her, like went right into her face and said, "You want to fight me? Fine. Punch me in the face. I'll punch, we'll go at it or whatever." My grandma's like, my crazy met her crazy. And now we've been best friends for like 20 years or more. I'm sure they were friends until they died. And I think it's funny because it's like if you match it, if you not in like a mean way, but if you go up to it, like kind of like you said, like laughing at my breasts or matching the energy of it's a joke, and then you get hurt by it, and then you're upset about it, and then you whine about it, and then your mom has to get involved, and now everyone's mad because you got your mom involved and all of the things. It snowballs where if like you were to just get in there and
Yep.
say, "What's your problem? What the hell's your problem?" Like my being from the section, like the city that I South Buffalo, you kind of and my grandma was from South Buffalo and all that Irish fighting. The stereotype is very real. Drinking and fighting, that's what we do, and we cry and we hug. Um, and that like be the first to punch. I don't like that. I don't like that mentality of go crazy before they go crazy, get, whatever, and have them be afraid of you. I've never gotten to that, or went to that. But the wisdom behind the whole meeting them where they are, I think is better of meeting them where they are and being like, what the hell's your deal? Like instead of getting other people involved, be like, why do you give a shit about me? Why do you give a shit about me? But it's easier to say as an adult. I would love to go back in time and just take over my body when I was 13 years old and just do it all again without giving a shit about any of these assholes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
That we all
know.
gave a shit about.
Yeah, I actually did remember a time that I was bullied. I lied because obviously it didn't really stay with me and
Mhm.
affect me, right? It took me a while to remember it. But it is a story I've told before because it reminded me of your story with your grandma.
Mhm.
So when I moved, my family moved from the town my dad grew up in to Ringwood, and this was like a brand new place to live. We didn't have any other relatives there, whatever. We moved into a house, so we each had our own bedroom. We didn't have to share bedrooms anymore in a little apartment. It was actually a house. We had a yard. We got a dog. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going into seventh grade, and I remember I made friends pretty much right out of the gate, from my bus stop to the girls on my bus. Very friendly and very like I made friends right away. There was one girl, however, well, I understand now, but at the time, she used to pick on me a lot. Her name is and
Shout out to.
shout out to so she would make fun of me for, oh my God, I'm totally date myself, but this was back in 1988, 1989,
Mm-hmm.
where we would wear leggings back then. We used to call stretch pants.
Yes,
They were
good
stretch
old
pants
stretch pants with a
and
sweater run.
wigwams. Do you remember wigwams? The socks?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. And the Reebok sneakers.
absolutely.
Okay. So she would make fun of me all the time, like saying I wore the same stretch pants every single day and like the same, like I don't really know. She just wanted to pick on the new girl. I think it's because, you know, how like every year, well, at least in my town, maybe you had one new kid a year. Like it didn't
Mhm.
happen very often. It wasn't like a frequently like, you know, it's like maybe one or two kids a year. So I guess because I was the new kid and she was already established and she was a cheerleader and all that stuff. So I guess that was like, oh, good, I have someone to pick on. But, and I do remember having like, it was like kind of like, I don't really completely understand because I don't really think there's anything wrong with me. I'm dressed like everybody else is dressed in the 80s.
Mhm.
So I'm like, whatever. Even at that young age in seventh grade, because I mean, a very loving family, very secure, grounded family. My mom and all of that, like, was a stay-at-home mom. So I felt I guess I felt more bad for her than I did for me.
Mm.
You know, I was like, that's unfortunate. She feels a need to make fun of me. But then I'm looking around, I'm like, but everybody's wearing stretch pants and wigwams. So I don't really understand. Like, are you making fun of everybody then? You
Yeah.
know? So I did have these dreams that I would kick her ass. And I dreams that I would fight. I was fighting with them. I kicked her ass. Fast forward to high school, and I had my Sweet 16 party, and someone brought her to my house. And I was like, because we ended up having these overlapping friends at
Oh
that
yeah,
time, because
yeah.
that's just what happens. I'm like, who the fuck invited to my house? Well, I don't exactly know how it happened, but she ended up inviting me over her house after school one day. We ended up becoming such best friends, like the greatest friends ever. Like,
Mm.
I spent so much time to the point that I would go to Wednesday night dinner at her grandma's house. They had a house down the shore, and I would spend like a week down the shore with them every summer.
Mhm.
I became friends with like even her older sister used to crack me up. Her and her boyfriend were always fucking fighting and everything. So they were just very entertaining. Um, I loved her family. I
Mhm.
ended up becoming like an extension of her family.
Mm.
So what I did learn is that the summer I moved there, now you will relate to this. Her dad and her got into a car accident because her dad was a raging alcoholic and
Oh,
flipped their vehicle, and they were lucky to get out alive. And
wow.
he had his driver's license taken away from him, and that had happened just before I moved there. So I just think in that little seventh grade brain of overwhelm, and her dad was like her hero.
Hmm.
Okay. That, and he was sober the entire time. Like I got to know them. He was like not drinking. So
Oh,
he, you know, but was also not driving. He wasn't allowed to drive for like 10 fucking years or
oh
something.
yeah.
They took his
Hmm.
life.
Surprise. Well, nowadays he'd go to jail.
Yeah, right.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when I learned that, there was even more forgiveness of like, of course she was treating me. It wasn't about me. And I was
Hmm.
fine. It was like, it wasn't personal to me. I just
Yeah.
didn't, you know, like I didn't understand that at the time. And then years later, those pieces fell into place. And I was like, okay, that makes
Hmm.
a little more sense. She needed somewhere to direct it. Like it wasn't really at me. Her whole life flashed before her eyes. She almost died. She almost like lost her father, in more than one way, right? If not by death, then by jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Yeah, so that was I guess the story of the bullying part too is that there's always the other side of like you don't really know what's going on with that other person. Not to say that you should take it and just take it. I
Right.
think it's more speaking to what you were saying, being confronting of it and doing something that bully would not even expect you to do, which discharges the energy and it just doesn't make it fun for them anymore. Or I don't even want to say fun. They're getting something out of it. They're getting attention. It's attention seeking. It's some sort of power trip of like they're the ringleaders of the
Mhm.
group, so they have to hold their power position. But if you can you take that away in some way, it's just not, they're not getting what they want out of that deal anymore, and they're going to leave you the fuck alone.
Yeah.
That's a work environment, that's a teenager environment, like that's what I just feel like that will just continue throughout your life if you don't nip that shit in the bud, and it
Mhm.
comes down to your own self-worth, right in our work. It's
Yeah.
like module 7 is self-worth, and I'm like, I always say I wish I could just chop off the first 6 modules, we go right for self-worth, but we have to build a case for that because
Yeah.
there's a lot behind you really feeling your own value and worth as a human
Mhm.
being and sticking up for yourself.
Yeah. Because like we're not taught what's conflict resolution. We're
Right.
not taught conflict resolution in school and in the world. It's like I think that we're taught a lot about being a victim because that is very you watch movies and stuff and like the whole being a victim and then like after the victim, everyone feels sorry for you. You have that whole, rallying of people who are sorry for you. There's no like rallying of getting yourself back to being, like let's not be a victim. What if I was just, and I mean, real victims exist
Mhm.
to real things, of course, but like 95% of the time, if you're holding on to something that happened 10 years ago, you're holding on to it. You have to let it go.
Mhm.
And we're not really taught that. We're not really taught to
Mm-mm.
resolve things
Mm-mm.
unless we join a program like this or like me in AA or therapy. Like it's almost like the we we deal with the aftermath, but we don't actually know how to deal with it and when it's happening.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't even know what the answer to that is. It's just
Well, yeah, it's tricky because, like, we talk a lot about our beliefs in our mentorship program because your underlying beliefs will dictate your behavior. What you say
Mhm.
and what you do is based on what you believe about yourself. So if you have a belief of people pleasing and I have to make sure everyone likes me,
Yeah.
it puts you in a vulnerable position to be picked on and to for them to get away with it because there's more of a fear of not being liked. I
Yeah.
want to make sure everyone likes me. That
Yeah.
becomes more important. And inside and into a teenager's brain, I mean even an adult's brain, when
Oh
you've gone
yeah.
through trauma and you have like, right, that
Mhm.
you can't discern that when you're going through a very difficult dynamic of argument and being, you know, I think that if you're if you're really uncomfortable with conflict and you're like, I don't want to deal with conflict, that is a magnet for conflict.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you're like, no, 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 or I watch my parents, I'm just going to like sweep this under the rug, or they don't really deal with this, or they don't really talk about this, then you're going to try to keep conflict at an arm's distance. But
Mhm.
it becomes a magnet to you because it's the thing of your life lessons to handle differently. Learn how to handle it. Learn how to find your voice. Learn how to, even if it's uncomfortable and even if you fuck up and even if it's awkward and even if it's hard, you got to just like stumble and fumble your way through conflict resolution
Yeah.
until you get better and better at it. That's what I've had to do.
Hmm.
That's what I've had to do. And do I look back? I'm like, oh man, yeah, some of these situations I wish I handled different, but I couldn't handle it different. I was only equipped to handle it how I could at the time. And that's that.
Yeah. And you never grow out of it. You deal with people every day.
Mhm.
Accidents happen, whatever. You fender bender, you get out of your car, you have a civil conversation with someone, or you get out of the car acting like a damn fool.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
what?
Yep.
Or because, like you said, it will
Yep.
find you. You will have to deal, even if you are like me. I work alone most of the time, but I'm out in the world.
Mhm.
Everybody's You can't
Yep.
hide from it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You can't. When I was younger, there was one time we were playing in the park. This before I moved. We were fortunate enough to grow up across the street from a park, and we were always out on our bikes and climbing trees and skinning our knees and falling in the pond and doing all those things. And we had a bunch of neighborhood kids and that we would hang out with. And I do remember there were some older, like slightly older boys that were started throwing rocks at us when we were playing on the one of the local like playgrounds.
Hmm.
And I don't know, they were probably just bored and just like so they start chucking rocks at the girls. Or who knows, maybe they had a crush on one of us and that's how the boys deal with it. It's so stupid.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I go home and I have an older brother.
Hmm.
So my brother took it into his own hands with
Yeah.
his, and they went off after those kids, and they never fucking bothered us again.
Yeah.
I don't know what my brother did to them. I don't know, but it's that one of those things of like I can pick on my little sisters, but don't you fucking like don't you even dare. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think that to me was also like maybe I internalized it like I'm worth sticking up for.
Hmm.
I like he stuck up for me, and it was like yeah, I don't know. But that was the other one instance, but I don't even know who those kids were. I don't even remember. Maybe
Yeah.
I knew who they were, but I have no recollection of it. But my brother went to bat for us, like, and who knows? He probably, I mean, my brother's wasn't really like a fighter per se, but um, when push comes to shove, when it's your family, then it's interesting what you're really made of. There was
Hmm.
someone picking on my sister when we were in high school. I was a senior, she was a freshman, and I heard of this girl who was typically known to be a bully. And she was picking on my sister. And I was like, I don't know what came over me. I'm not like, yes, I teach kickboxing. Yes, I know how to throw a punch. I've never actually thrown a punch before in my life, but
Hmm.
I did absolutely confront her. Like, I don't know who the fuck came over me. I
Yeah.
confronted her and I told her I would be more than happy to kick her ass if she doesn't leave
Hmm.
my sister alone. She never
Hmm.
bothered my sister again. I
Yeah.
didn't have to lay a hand on her. I didn't have to get into a fight, but I think she didn't realize who I was or that we were even sisters or whatever, and it was just stupid. But
Yeah.
I nipped it right in the bud, and nothing ever came of it from there.
You know what happened once to me? And oh, I hope this girl learned a lesson big time. I was on a softball team, and my sister was on the bleachers watching. And we were in a huddle like before the game. And this girl on my team was making fun of the girl over there. She was making fun of my sister. She was making fun of her. She did not know she was my sister. And I looked her in the face. I said, "That's my sister." And she's like, "Yeah, right." Like she rolled her eyes. I go, "Hey, Maria." She's like, "What?" I go, "Come here." And she came over. I said, you guys, I wanted to introduce you to my little sister. She came to watch us play today." And they were all like, that was how I confronted her. I hope she felt like an asshole. You know what I mean? So, I hope she learned a lesson. And then she felt like an asshole. She did. She's like, "I feel so bad. I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Well, maybe next time you won't talk about people who you don't know." You know?
Yeah, that throws them off their game when they're really
Hmm.
confronted like that. They don't get used to, like that pushback,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, people make fun of my sister more than me, but that's because like I think. I've always been a confronter, and Maria's always stood behind me. That's
Yeah.
always like what we say. Comes with a lot of baggage on both sides. You
Yeah,
know what
of
I
course it
mean?
does. Of course it does. Yes. It's
Yeah.
not like you're unscathed when you're the one like confronting or not
Yeah.
afraid to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's flip sides to all of it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There is for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I know your sister, so it's the also the people pleasing part that I had touched on before.
Yeah.
Like I want to be liked, and I got
Hmm.
everyone's got to be along, get along.
Yeah.
So there's a susceptibility and vulnerability to that.
And all the girl was doing was sitting there watching me play softball.
Yeah. 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 Isn't
So
that funny?
stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Assholes.
Yeah.
Then it's like it's never going away. It's like
Mm.
assholes become
Oh,
assholes, and then assholes have
yeah.
children, and
Well,
they're
also have
assholes.
children, and then they're
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you know.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in that instance, it's like the bullying won't ever go away. So how about we as humans figure out better communication and conflict resolution to
Hmm.
combat that instead of trying to like ugh, from the outside just punish the bully. I think the dynamic is more complicated than that. Because
Yes.
again, okay, punish that bully, fine. If you are not equipping yourself to handle the bullies in life, the CEO, the manager you end up working with, like you volunteer at a local, who knows, wherever, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't, it can pop up anywhere.
Hmm.
That dynamic's going to show again. No one's going to come to bat for you. So how
Hmm.
are you going to handle it differently? Are you going to
Hmm.
allow it? What are you going to say?
Hmm.
And then going back to what we were kind of starting with, that some awareness of that happening, I think, in conjunction with being open, that perhaps, let's just say, oh, I really do love dance, but it was this part of the dance that sucked the soul and the spirit out of it. But I really do love my body, love moving my body this way. I love music. I love the maybe did get to connect with a couple of girls that were like, wow, really, if you have the right dance team, it could be
Hmm.
amazing. So perhaps it just takes a little bit of reframing and a shifting of
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm not going to dance in this capacity, but I still really love to dance and I'm going to dance in this capacity,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
actually, happy ending. She did quit,
mhm.
but there was another teacher that she used to like play play with, no, dance with, that started their own studio. So there's a bunch of people that moved away. And so she's going to do like a fun dance class once a week that
Yeah,
doesn't compete. That's just for fun
just for fun.
because it's fun.
Taking out the competition of it. Yeah. So that is what, like, that perhaps was the evolution of her own, like,
Mm.
if you
Yeah.
really love to dance, sometimes you got to take a break with something because something
Hmm.
like that has happened where it really has tarnished your whole experience
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
However, if it's really meant and it's really inside you, any sort of creative form,
Hmm.
um, it can find its way to come out in a different way that can be way more serving and way more drilled down to like, oh, well, these are the elements that I do like of what I was doing, and I didn't even like that after all. You
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so same with like as I said when we first started talking, like as I was explaining what we were going to talk about today, it made me immediately think of like overstaying my welcome with something when I was running my gym Evolution.
Hmm.
So I like my dream was to open a gym and then it just like lined up with the recession and I was just hanging on with like, oh my God, my fingernails, just trying to hang on and trying to hang on. And everything was like getting pulled and ripped out from under me because I wasn't willing to let it go. So that was just a very painful lesson of like, well, I mean, looking back in retrospect, I don't want to change any of it because this is where I
Yeah.
am now.
Yeah.
You need more sequence of events to happen in your life for you to understand, like, ah, that's why that happened.
And now you teach. Now you teach,
Yes.
right?
So, what I recognized from that scenario, and I have said it before, anyone who's been following me for a while, or even my new viewers, um, that like I opened a gym to get people healthy, to help facilitate health and wellness and fitness and for others. And Steve and I nearly killed ourselves in
Hmm.
the process. It was the business ran me. I did not run the business. It was so depleting and so devastating in so many regards. I was there 7 days a week, worked, 14 hours a day sometimes, work, 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 hard work, by the way. And that's a whole nother topic. We can talk about hard work and work ethics at some point. I would like to. Um, but I eventually, as that, I was really honest with myself inside. I opened the gym for a certain reason, but then I wasn't really working with clients in the capacity. So if I'm really being honest with myself, it needed to fall away because the truth and the joy I had was to teach and to be more hands on and really like be integrated with my community. And I couldn't do that in that capacity with the gym.
Hmm.
And I still run into people who are like, "Oh my God, Dana, that I was the fittest in my entire life when I was a member of your gym," which is incredible. I'm so happy. They have definitely made friendships in that space. They continue to be friends to this day. That's awesome. Brings me so much joy. Um, but if I'm being honest about my meaning and purpose in my life, I needed that to break apart a little bit so I could redirect and do the next thing. And now I've cultivated that here of why
Hmm.
I wanted to open the gym in the first place, but it got away from me. And then I had to like re really do some internal work. Like, what do I want? What do I want out of this career?
Yeah.
Like, what's reciprocal? Like what's in it for me? What's in it for my clients? Where like it brings us both life. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I have that. Now I have that.
Hmm. It's like
But
letting go of what like you were saying, like mirroring the dancing and then competing and to just dancing for fun. And then
yeah,
like for you, it was like you were trying to do what you thought you were supposed to do because everyone was like starting
yeah.
a gym, you have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have this, and you have to have all these things. And then when you like whittled it down to what you actually like and enjoy, this square peg in a round hole, you made your own peg, and now that works for you. I've never seen a gym the way that your gym is. We don't have anything like that around here. And that's great because it brings people who want that, who don't fit into the gym world box.
Mhm.
Like for me, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's the second time I said that today. Um, that I went to the gym with my husband. I was so bored. I was so bored. I wanted to talk to people. No one was talking. I was like, I was on the treadmill and I'm watching the news and I'm like looking around like smile at people and he's like, I'm like, this is not fun. Why do people go to the gym? And I'm like, because I'm used to going to, well, I used to go to the gym back in the day, of course, to beat myself up. Probably just like the guy who was standing next to me who didn't want to dance or didn't want to dance, didn't want to talk to me, was
Mhm.
doing at that moment. And then like now everything I do is just so much more fun and talking and we have relationships and I would never want to go back to that
Yeah,
world.
which is also where like that makes me also think about how I business was so serious, my workouts were so serious. And now I think business is so fun and my workouts are so fun. So like that part
Hmm.
really got to expand and improve over the course of time too.
Yeah.
So even though it's like, yeah, sometimes the moving on can be painful.
Hmm.
However, it's like you're just getting like it's just like cracking the surface to like rise up to the next level.
Hmm.
That's if you want to look at it that way. If you choose
Yes.
to look at it that way, you don't have to. A lot of people, it's like, oh, this sucks, and this, I wish it was different. And now because of them, I can't dance anymore.
Mm.
That's one way to look at it. And again, I'm going to go back and say, this is why we work at your belief system. That's what Mandy and I do. We work at the belief system. What's underlying what beliefs do you have that then dictate the behavior and what you're saying and what you're doing? Because the belief of like someone else holds the power over you, like someone else is making the decisions about dance for you,
Yeah.
that's okay. Then you're going to have an outcome in your life if that's what you believe. But
Right.
I don't believe that, you know? I believe
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, now I see why this part is getting taken away because if I'm really honest when I'm quiet with myself at the end of the day, this part I didn't really like anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you're going to be the happiest or the fittest or whatever in the environment that makes you the happiest anyways. Yeah.
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 So,
All right, well, that's a good note to end on. That's true. That's
yeah.
true. It's like cultivating making your happiness and joy one of the most important factors of your life can
Mm-hmm.
change your life, will change your fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to believe that you're worthy of being happy and you can handle it.
Mhm.
Can you handle it? That's a topic for another day.
That's the topic. That's a good one too. Let's write that down.
Yeah, that's a writer downer. That's a writer downer. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining Mandy and I in our conversation today. Anything resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you. Comment under our videos. And of course, if you want to talk about the mentorship program, or which is really like I've had a few clients say to me recently, "Oh, Dana, but you're like a life coach. Like, yes, it's the food thing, but you're really a life coach."
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's because we're integrating all these parts of your humanness, your relationship, yeah, with food and body and exercise and your health. But do you see how all of this connects to your career, your intimate relationships, your partnerships, your friendships, your family, all of that. We have to talk about all of that. We
Yeah.
can't just talk about food. Food is
Mm-hmm.
a byproduct. Your coping mechanism with how you're handling food, that's the side, that's the almost the symptom of what all this other stuff that's going on in your life. So if anything we talked about today resonates with you or you're like, "Oh, I'm really interested to see this methodology. What is this in the mentorship?" Two things I want to share with you. One, Mandy and I are doing a info session every single month. We have one coming up for May,
Mm-hmm.
where you can just explore and we could talk about these 12 points. And it's on Zoom. We're
You
not
know what I
recording.
just realized? It's
Yeah.
on May 4th, Star Wars Day. May the 4th
Oh, may
be with
the
you.
4th be with you. Yes. Which is a Sunday and it's at noon Eastern time. We're not recording it and it'll be at like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Because let's just be honest. If you've struggled with this topic for decades, 2 hours of your life is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It is worth it for you to invest in understanding what the missing pieces are to your puzzle. So Mandy and I are here to share that with you, all the 12 points, the framework that is really important for you to integrate, and information about the mentorship should you decide to join us. It's always low pressure. It's got to be a yes from within and on
Mm-hmm.
your terms. And then the other thing is if you couldn't partake in the info session, then you can just talk to me or Mandy
Mm-hmm.
privately. And we can get to know you a little bit and find out, you could ask us any questions you'd like. We can go over a bit of the framework of the mentorship, what, different ways you could work in a group, work privately. So there's a link below in the description of this video. So you've got two options there if you want to learn more. So if it's calling at you, please answer the call. Like, I'd rather you know and have information about what's possible than to have yourself in the dark and just thinking, oh, well, the next diet is going to be the answer that's going to fix this. And
Mm-hmm.
and just again creating more of the same kind of pattern in your life again and again and again, and looking for an answer in a method that cannot provide you the emotional, mental, and spiritual solution.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. All right. So thanks for joining us today, and we will see you on the next one. Okay. So, I mean, it's refresh and revive, right? That's the theme. And it is springtime, so it's like coming out of hibernation and like trying to like it's filling your spirit and like so spirited movement. We're gonna have some creativity. We're always gonna have recess with Mandy, and Mandy always comes up with some really fun games and activities and things where we can really feel silly and feel like kids again. This is a practice of you getting what you need. So we have an incredible itinerary. We have delicious food. We have a really good element of like, I do think it's like a good playlist where, you know, you start out like I warm you up a little bit, take you up a notch, and then bring you down. We recover, and then I take you up a notch. Like it's like there's just a certain rhythm to our events, and we've been doing them for a while. Mandy and I make a great team, and it's just super fun and really enjoyable for a woman who's seeking to find herself at this stage. Like I kind of know who I am. I don't quite know everything that I want, but I want to take time for self-care. This is a whole nother level of cultivating like what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like tending to that garden that in those darker times or difficult times, or even in the joy, you can allow yourself to receive. Mm-hmm. And you know, I just can't say enough about our in-person events. They're just incredible. They really are.